Hi everyone, my name is Shelby Clark. I'm a principal investigator at the Good Project, and today we're going to be talking about design thinking and how you can use it in your classrooms and with the Good Project ideas. So why do we want to use design thinking? So John Spencer, who's an educator who has the launch framework of design thinking, has outlined some great ideas about why it's so important for students. We know that design thinking can help students become more empathetic, it can help them become problem solvers, it can help them become risk takers and more curious, where they think outside the box. And there's so many other positive outcomes that have been found to be associated with design thinking for students. So we really want to bring it into the classroom because it can help them become, all these amazing things in terms of problem solving, and it can help them think about how to make a difference in the world in terms of, social impact problem solving. We're going to start by watching this video that will help give you an idea about the main steps of problem solving, of design thinking, and we'll take you through what sort of the design thinking background is.
Human-centered design is a creative approach to problem solving, one that starts with people and ends with innovative solutions tailored to meet their needs. When you understand the people you're trying to reach and then design from their perspective, not only will you arrive at unexpected answers, but you'll come up with ideas that they'll embrace. Human-centered design is both how you think and what you do with it. It's a process that consists of 3 phases: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. The inspiration phase is about learning on the fly, opening yourself up to creative possibilities, and trusting that as long as you remain grounded in the desires of the people you're designing for, your ideas will evolve into the right solution. In the ideation phase, you come up with lots of ideas. Some too crazy to work, some too crazy not to try, and you'll refine them, tossing out the bad and improving the good. Making things helps you learn, grow, and test your ideas. Building a simple prototype gets your idea tangible and gives you something to put right back into the hands of the folks you're designing for. Without their input, you won't know if your solution is on target or how to evolve your idea. Keep iterating, testing, and integrating feedback until you've got everything just right. During the implementation phase, you'll build partnerships, shore up your business model, and get your idea out into the world, which was always the goal in the first place. Anyone can practice human-centered design, and everyone benefits, because it gets us all to solutions that are adopted and embraced.
So a key element to think about here is that oftentimes people think about design thinking in businesses. It's come out of the Stanford D School. The design school in Stanford is one of the main areas that people think of with design thinking oftentimes, or IDEO is known for it. But we using it with our students, we also want to think about the fact that it doesn't have to be an actual physical, tangible product, the way that the video showed a phone as the item that came out of the design thinking process. It can oftentimes be something like a poster. It could be an essay. It could be, an idea that is the prototype that comes out of this design thinking process. So it can be all different types of things that are the quote unquote product of design thinking. It doesn't have to be they create some type of item, phone, business, or anything like that. So there's lots of things that can be the outcome of design thinking. So let's look at those steps again. So the inspiration phase is really where you're defining your problem. You're thinking about what it is that you want to work on. What is a problem that's important to you that need or your community, and then you're going and you're learning more about that problem from people. So you're going to the quote unquote users, the people who are affected by that or people who know about it, and you're learning more. Then the ideation stage in the middle, the brainstorming phase, is where you're trying to come up with more ideas about that problem and how to solve that problem. Followed by the prototyping and testing phases, and implementation is where you're testing out some of the ideas that you came up with. You're seeing how to refine the ideas and ultimately putting an idea out into the world. So another way to look at this is this image here. So again, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. But I really like these questions that go along with each of these stages. So the empathize and define stages are, what is the problem? You're exploring the current reality. So I'm going to use the example, based in the United States here, where we eat lunch in cafeterias oftentimes at school. And so we eat together, we get our food from the cafeteria. So let's say that our problem is, I hate the food in my school cafeteria. I hate it. I want to do something about it. I think it's bad. I think it's unhealthy. I think it's too expensive. So eventually we use these how might we questions, but how can we envision a different reality? How might we might have a lot of questions. How might we create a less expensive lunch? How might we create a healthier lunch? How might we create a more delicious lunch? So we're coming up with all these questions to think about what the problem space might be. So then we might actually go out and talk to people, talk to other students that are dealing with this lunch situation. We might talk to the cafeteria workers. We might try and get more of a sense of the problem. In the ideation stage, we're going to start trying to envision a new future. What if? What could be? So we're going to start brainstorming about what could we do? What are the different solutions we could have to the problem that we're seeing in the cafeteria? We're really going to define more narrowly which one we want to focus on. So let's say we want to focus on a healthier lunch. How might we have a healthier lunch in our cafeteria? We're going to really focus on brainstorming solutions to that. And then what wows? We're going to make some choices about how to move forward. Maybe we decide that we want to really focus on creating a salad bar in our cafeteria that's going to help create a healthier lunch in our cafeteria. So we're going to start trying out different, we're going to create a choice. We're going to start trying out a way to implement that salad bar. We're going to test it. We're going to get feedback from people. We're going to really see what works. And yeah, in this final phase of what works, we're getting feedback, we're trying it over and over, we're going back to the prototype phase, try it again, get feedback, go back to prototype phase, try it again, get feedback, and eventually we're refining it down to a way that really works. We have our really good salad bar that works for our cafeteria. So that's how you would go through these different stages. One example. But there are so many ways to do design thinking with your learners. And there's so many different ideas out there, activities, and different things to help do each of these phases. And so I'm going to show you some examples from places where I really like to look for design thinking practices and activities. And the links are attached to this presentation, which the slides will be available. So it's a little overwhelming, perhaps. There's a lot of different activities, but let's just look at some examples, and you can know that you can come back to these examples and also look for more on the internet that fit maybe for your own school, your own context, and your own learners. So example, how might we make cafeteria food better at our school? So first, again, in the empathize stage, we want to start thinking about what our problem is. So I've seen a teacher who does design thinking with her students, and she starts out with the question of like, what is something that breaks your heart? Or what is something that is really important to you? And that's how she gets her learners to start thinking about a problem that they really care about. So let's say this is what somebody really thought about. They want to focus on cafeteria food. They're going to start thinking about some of these 5 W questions: why, who, what, when, where, and then how. And that's going to help them start thinking about these how might we. And as we talked about, how might we make healthier food? How might we make more delicious food? How might we make less expensive food? That's some of those examples. And then again, I talked about you might go to the people who this is affecting. You might talk to people who know about cafeteria food and how to make it healthier. And you're going to do something like an empathy map with them to get more information. And you're going to ask them to talk about what they think about cafeteria food, how that makes them feel, what did they do around it, and what did they say. So an example that we have here is, oops, sorry, somehow jumped forward. Let's just go right forward again. So here's an example around buying a TV. So, let's say somebody was trying to make a better way of buying TVs. So they went to Jamie and they said, what's it like for you to buy a TV? And he says, am I wasting too much time? That's what he's thinking when he's buying a TV. He says he wants something reliable. What he does to buy a TV is checks websites, and what he feels is overwhelmed, a little excited. And so this gives you more information about what users or the people you're working for to help might feel in a situation like this. So all of this information is there to help you try and start defining more the actual specific question that you might want to focus on more. So maybe you go out, you have a lot of these how might we questions, and you start to hear more and more from those people, your students in your school, that they really care about how healthy the food is. It's too unhealthy, they want something healthier. So you're starting to define more narrowly what your how might we question is. And you don't want it to be too broad. You don't want it to be too narrow. You want it to be something that you can actually work on and come up with a usable answer to. So you might do something like this activity to help figure out what that actual how might we question is. Then the define stage is really getting a grapple on that reality of what is happening with that question as it is now. What is, remember, it's the what is stage. So something you might do, you might look at stakeholders, you might do things like that. Or I like this activity called Powers of 10, where you try and get a really like high level understanding of your topic and a really like nitty gritty, close perspective of your topic. So for cafeteria food, maybe you try and like go and see what the whole distribution of cafeteria food is to your school. You try and see like where does it come from, who makes it, how is it sold, how much does it cost, and go all of that whole distribution. But then maybe you're more close up as you go and you actually make the cafeteria food and give it out to students for a day. Maybe that's so you want to see the close-up process of how it gets to the students during the day. Then in terms of ideate, this is the brainstorming sessions. So now you have your question, you've defined it, you've gotten down to, we think we want to focus more specifically on how might we help make cafeteria food more healthy. So we want to start thinking of ideas of how to solve this. So places like Stanford D School and IDEO really focus on having brainstorming rules in place when they go to this next stage so that they can really think of many, many ideas. So deferring judgment, thinking of wild ideas, one conversation at a time, being visual, using post-it notes on the wall, drawing, really trying to get wild ideas out there. So something like this is a way that people can draw ideas in the brainstorming process where you give them 6 different places on a grid and you give them the problem. So maybe it's that cafeteria food is too unhealthy. Every person in the group gets a grid of 6. They have to come up with 6 ideas each that they've drawn out and then put them all together. And then that's the place where people might start voting on which are the ideas that we feel are most helpful. You might start putting ideas together that are similar, and ultimately you're going to start narrowing down ideas. That's when you'd move into the prototype phase after you feel like you've gone through several rounds of brainstorming, but you start to get to a phase where you're like, you know what, we have an idea that we want to try out. It doesn't have to be the perfect idea. It doesn't mean it's going to be the only idea that's tried out, but you've gotten to a place where you feel like you have an idea that you want to get some feedback on and you want to try out. So let's say that you got to a phase where you were like, you know what, we want to try out just putting bowls of salad out on a table with some toppings, and we want to see what happens. We're going to test this out with just a small group of students who come to first lunch, let's say, and we want to see how it goes. We're not going to roll it out to all of the lunches at our school. We're just going to do it with one of the lunches. And so maybe this is you're going to write out this whole prototype idea. You're going to really conceptualize it. You're going to figure out what it's going to look like. And then you're going to maybe test it. You're going to start testing it out. And as you put it into first lunch, then you're going to start getting feedback on that idea. And so maybe you ask students in first lunch for some feedback using something like a feedback capture grid. There's many other ones, roses and thorns. There's I like, I wish, I wonder, which is similar to this, but this is a little bit more, has four sections rather than just the 3. But you get some feedback on your idea from first lunch students. And maybe they're like, I like that we're given healthy food options. I wish there were more toppings. I wish that it was kept colder. Maybe you could bring in a whole salad bar where they're put into those cold sort of, I don't even know what it's called, but a salad bar crisper, I guess maybe it's called. And how much would that cost? Would we be able to do that? Maybe that's under questions. So you're starting to get some feedback. So maybe you try something else. You try and figure out how to keep the lettuce colder in your next iteration of your prototype, and so on and so forth, until you get to a place where you really feel ready to launch your whole salad bar idea to all 4 lunches that you have at your school per se. And again, so that's launching to an audience. You got to launch it out to an authentic audience, which is so important for students. We know there's a lot of research from project-based learning, inquiry learning, design thinking learning, that having an authentic audience is so important for students in their agency, their self-efficacy, their confidence, etc. So let's see some examples in action. So we're going to watch 2 videos here. They're fairly short. That can give you an idea of what design thinking could look like for your students.
Design is used to solve problems. It's the designer's job to come up with solutions at every scale. Design is all around us. Everything around us is design. So why isn't design introduced into early education? Why is it not integrated into our math and science classes? Wouldn't it be valuable to actually learn how to make things? From ideation to concept all the way through production? Together, we at Aru Lead In with Bernard Design are chronicling the introduction of design into early education, specifically 8th graders. Working with one of the most diverse schools in New York City, the school at Columbia University, we've asked them to really dream the future classroom, focusing on the basic items such as the locker, the chair, and the desk. We've asked them to really walk us through their design process from research to ideation all the way through product launch, which they will be a part of at ICFF later on this year. What started off as a simple effort to introduce design to a group of 8th graders really resulted in clear evidence that the classroom today is quite primitive in the learning process. Let us start by introducing you to the project, and let's hear what the students have to say. Here's day 1.
Is anything with like creativeness added to it.
Creativity with a purpose.
The Aru Lead In project that we are doing, we either make a table, desk, or a locker, trying to recreate it in an innovative way that will solve all the problems that everyone's having.
So as a person who runs a school, I'm looking for a lot in furniture. And I'm looking for durability. I'm looking for something that is graffiti-proof or can be removed from graffiti. I'm looking for aesthetics.
Just trying to design a chair that will actually work in school. It has to work for the students and for the teachers, and also not be so expensive that the school can't afford to buy like 20. Well, my group and I first were in like the research phase. We made a board of all the different research, and we searched up like all these different types of old desks that we want to try to change. We're working on like creating a sketch of really like what we want the ideal desk to be like.
Going through magazines and putting pictures on my inspiration board.
Design matters and environment matters, and I believe that every child and every teacher deserves to work in a beautiful space.
So you can look into their videos to see more of that process for that project for their school. We're going to look at one more video to see it with younger students.
Let's see what happens.
You get one.
Oh, look at the water.
Yay! Because they've been exposed to design thinking at such an early age, that creativity has just blossomed. They can really think outside the box, and they really feel that there is not a problem out there that they cannot devise a solution for.
Do you want to drink that? No. See what you can do to redesign it.
At Design 39 campus, we want our students to be working on real-world work in real-world ways. Design thinking is an innovative approach to problem solving, and it's a step-by-step process designing for a specific purpose or person. Because it's World Water Day, today's design challenge is creating a water filtration system using natural resources.
In design thinking, the first thing you have to do is empathize. If you don't do that, you won't be able to make the right thing for the person. This morning, we watched a few videos to see how other people get water.
It was about a girl that had to walk 4 miles to get water and 4 miles to get back.
And her back was aching because of that heavy bucket of water on her head. We just have to get a glass of water from the fridge.
After we showed him the video, we just shared some facts with him. Worldwide, here's how many people don't have access to clean water.
In the video, what did you notice around her? Some of the natural resources around her.
A bunch of sticks and plants.
So could she use these items?
Yes.
So for the research part, we needed the kids to experience these natural resources. What happens when you pour water through sand? What happens when you pour water through cloth?
Did it get all of the dirt? Most.
After research, we'll define the problem. A lot of times they need to come up with the definition. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? With this one, we had a problem already defined.
So our problem is people who do not have access to clean water need a way to filter water so they don't get sick from it. What's next?
Brainstorm different ideas.
When students are ideating, we talk about rapid ideating. We don't want them to waste too much time kind of working through one idea or adding a lot of details. It's just, what if I made it this way? And what if I changed it that way?
Oh, so you're saying to like layer some of those materials?
Then they go ahead and prototype.
This is not your final building. It's like your model, so when it comes to your real one, you know what you're going to build.
Walking around to the tables, you hear students starting to combine different ideas.
Drawing it first shows how you're going to build it.
Now we will connect a pipe right here. And then it has to turn and go upside.
So now they have their paper model, it's labeled, so they can go and get the supplies needed and start building it.
We need a cloth.
The prototyping when they're building it can be sometimes the quickest part. They have it all planned out, they know what they're building. After students prototype, they're excited to jump in and see, how did my prototype work?
What number would you say this is for turbidity?
We brought out a turbidity scale, which they would be looking for the clarity of the water, and then a ppm device, which would measure the purity of it.
So even though water might be clear, it still might not be safe to drink.
What do you see, Brandon? What number? 985.
If it fails, you have to see the problems and make it again.
The final stage in the design process is we'll have them upload into their digital portfolio. Sometimes it's about publishing results that didn't quite work so that others can learn from it.
Publishing could just be sharing out to an audience. What would they change, or what was challenging about the project? How did the group work together?
And you guys took both ideas and made it into one. And how did that make you feel, Emma?
Starting design thinking at a really early age, they'll take more risks.
And you can finish that one out yourself as well. But that gives you a really good idea of how a quick sort of design thinking project could happen in the classroom over the course of maybe 1 or 2 classes. So take a moment to reflect on one of these questions. Now that we've gone through some of these ideas, what kinds of projects would you most be excited for your students to take on using design thinking? Which step of design thinking do you think your students might find the most challenging? Or what other classroom practices could you see supporting design thinking for your students? Finally, why do we care about design thinking in connection with good work? So remember, good work is excellence, ethics, and engagement. And so we see here, and we've talked about it throughout this PD, that design thinking ensures engagement for students. It's dealing with real-world problems that support student agency. It helps students think about how they can make a difference in the world, in their communities, and that it really focuses on authentic engagement with a problem, and that authentically testing it out and bringing a product to the real world, whatever that product may be. So it's really about meaning and purpose. It encourages excellence. It has a an iterative process, an established process that of course you don't have to do every single thing perfectly, but it has a standard of excellence that is meant to be followed. And finally, it's promoting ethics. It has a beyond the self purpose in a lot of ways. It's asking students to think about their responsibilities to self and others. And it's really focusing on solution building for the creation of a better future. So really, again, bringing us back to those ideas of the rings of responsibility and how can we think about our responsibilities to ourselves, our communities, our professions, and the wider world. As we finish up, how do you feel now that you've learned more about design thinking? What is one idea that design thinking makes you think about? And what is one action you would like to do related to design thinking? Thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed this professional development, and we hope to see you at future professional developments. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.